Ollie, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you guys?
I'm good. What do you think of the college? Former ball Ollie Lane joining us now. What do you think of the college football playoff year one?
I don't know, I'm kind of middle thumb. I mean, it's been fun to watch,
That's
but at the
better.
same time,
Hey, that's
yeah,
Ollie. That's better than middle finger.
yeah. But it's been fun to watch. Obviously, the matchups have been somewhat decent, I guess, and I mean, being able to see more football later in the year is nice. But I think the way they've got it set up now, I don't think it's sustainable. I don't know if it'll work out in the future. I mean, especially with the conference championship games. I mean, when you look, every single conference championship one lost their playoff game. Then all four teams that had the bye lost, so the bye had no advantage whatsoever. And I mean, if you think about it more in a playoff setting, I feel like the home field advantage in the first round was cool for this year. But I mean, if you want a true playoff like this team versus this team, I feel like you got to play on neutral sides because I mean that's just where you get the most. You strip away as much of the outside stuff as you can and say, all right, it's this team's talent versus this team's talent at a neutral site. Now, granted, I'd probably be saying something different if the neutral or we were at home for our playoff game because it adds a little bit different feel to it for your own team. But I mean, just looking at it like for Oregon, it sucks for Oregon to go undefeated, number one all year, and then you got to run into Ohio State again, who you barely beat, which was a huge game for you early in the regular season. Now you got to play them again, and they're on a heated trail and just tore through them like it was nothing. I mean, that shouldn't be happening in the playoffs. I mean, the most interesting game I feel like from this last week was the Texas-Arizona State game, and that was more I feel like Texas just kind of letting them come back into that game and compete with them. Now I think Arizona State was played really well, but I mean that was the only one that really kind of like stood out at me. That was a good matchup, I guess, per se. But I mean, I think you've got to relook at how they're seeding the teams. I mean, I saw before the playoffs started someone taking, all right, you've got your 12 teams now, seed them realistically into what they should be. No bye for conference championship because I mean, at the end of the day, the conferences are not equal. And I mean, I think if you're going to continue to have this 12-team playoff look, you probably should just get rid of the conference championship game entirely and just crown whoever has the best record at the end of the year. Hey, you won the conference this year. Congratulations. But there's no reason to waste that game when it, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't even really matter that much. I mean, you got to bye, but every team that got the bye that won their conference championship lost. So I mean, it didn't seem to prove anything as an advantage-wise to those teams.
Well, the problem is that the SEC championship game makes millions of dollars.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know how they get rid of that, but you're right. Caleb said that it would be de-emphasized early. I thought it might take a couple of years, but it felt like it was de-emphasized in year one.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the fact is that game at the end of the day didn't matter that much because Texas is still in the Final Four. Georgia got the bye because they won, but ended up losing. So, I mean, it didn't really matter that they won that game to get the bye. And then, I mean, you look at like Clemson should have never been in the playoffs, shouldn't have been a consideration for the playoffs. Well, they win the conference championship. Let's give them the 12th spot and let them play Texas in the first round. I mean, you could have put so many better opponents into the playoffs than them. And I just saying, Arizona State played really well against Texas, but I mean, did they really deserve a spot? And then, I mean, you look at Boise State. It's Boise State. Did they deserve the bye in the first round? I don't know, just because it's hard to compare those teams against the other Power Four conferences because it's completely different. You saw what happened when they went out there against Penn State. What everyone I think probably realized is that when Genty and them go against a normal defense, a good defense, he's just going to look like another normal running back. And he had some good plays in that game, but it wasn't like the great Bo Jackson reincarnated running back that everybody been talking about all season.
Yes, I totally agree.
Caleb, I want you to jump in there. Ollie brought to you in part by our friends at the UPS store, Hardin Valley, helping individuals and small businesses, wide range of products and services, locally owned and operated. The link right down below. UPS store, Hardin Valley, proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols.
So, Ollie, I totally agree with you, and I wanted to talk to you even further about this because, like, let's just take the SEC championship for a minute. Let's take Georgia, and then let's take Notre Dame. Notre Dame, everybody said they were stupid for not joining a conference, and they willingly relinquished the chance at a first-round bye. And their whole point was, they said it at the time. They're like, yeah, we're not going to get a first-round bye in the college football playoff, but we never had to play a conference championship game. And and so what happened? Notre Dame gets a home playoff game, whereas Georgia has to play the SEC title game. You can say Georgia got a bye, but I would say that playing the SEC title game took a hell of a lot more out of Georgia than that first round college football playoff game against Indiana took her out of Notre Dame, wouldn't you?
Yeah, no, I'd 100% agree with that. And that makes perfect sense for Notre Dame not to go and join the conference that they need to, because they don't have to. I mean, they can continue to play whatever games they want to, and if they win enough of them, which they're going to schedule themselves up in a situation to win enough of them, they'll get in the playoffs. And honestly, I think it's better to not take – I mean, Georgia had a break from the SEC championship game all the way until yesterday to play, whereas Notre Dame had a game in between that, and they weren't ever really had downtime to get themselves, I guess, out of the feeling of playing and stuff like that. I think when you give these buys to some of these teams, like you stretch it out over a while, they're going to get cold. You got to get reused to playing football again. It's almost like a mini off season in between. There's a lot of pressure that builds up as those games continue to be further and further out. But I mean, I think you hit it right on the spot. I mean, Notre Dame almost seems to have the head IQ in this, is like, oh, we're not going to play in a conference championship. There's no reason to have them anymore. We're just going to skip that. I'll take the home playoff game, and that'll be my route to the championship, which seems to be working out fairly easier than every other team that won their conference championship and got the bye.
Ollie, we discussed on a couple of different occasions, there were some really timely bye weeks for Tennessee that allowed them to get fresh. And I understand that you're going to be more fatigued at the end of the year playing 15 football games instead of 10. However, you kind of hinted at something that I was curious about. There is something to be said for staying in rhythm. As long as you don't suffer injuries, isn't there something to that?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, the longer that you take off of playing, like, I mean, for instance, this is a little exaggerated, but I mean, that off season from whenever you're done with the season until spring ball, when you get back up, that first week of spring ball is hard to get back into the flow of things and know what you're doing. And I mean, when you get 2 to 3 weeks off, you're looking at, all right, I mean, chill. You got for them, they had Christmas. They all got to go home, I'm sure, for Christmas and enjoy that. So not only you're taking time away from just playing football, but you're also, during those holidays, you take time away from the game in general, entirely from the program, and you're on your own. And then you got to come back, and now it's all right, it's go time. Let's get ready for the game. It's coming up, all this stuff. So, I mean, it's a lot of moving parts. And I mean, like I said, the further you get out from that game time, the more, you can recreate collisions and stuff like that in practice. But I mean, you're not going to know until you go up against somebody. And the more consistently you're going against talent, you're going to get used to what you need to do and more in the feel of your mannerisms, your steps and all that stuff. But I mean, the further you take out of it, because I mean, you can't 100% replicate a game rep in practice. You want to try to give your 100% effort in practice, but nothing's ever going to play out like a game until you get in the game. So, I mean, the more space you have between that, I think the more you rust up a little bit and you lose some of that stuff that you hammered in for 12 games, kind of nailed down and everything. You forget about that for a little bit till it hits about halftime, second quarter of the game. You're like, I got to pick it up. I'm not where I was when we played our last game.
So let's talk a little bit about a few ways maybe to fix this. So rather than a bye, what if they went to, like, say 16 teams and just the conference champions got guaranteed home games? Because it seems like the home games are much more valuable than a bye, right?
Yeah, no, I think that would honestly pay off a little bit better. And then, I mean, you're including a couple more teams, getting more of a strategic look at it. I think realistically, if they really want to nail this down to a 100% perfect resume, I guess, for a playoff, I think you got to restructure what your conferences are and somehow play those conference championships in a playoff setting, similar to many other professional leagues where the playoffs are set up feed into a conference championship that then feed into the big game. And I think that's probably what they need to try to move themselves to in the future. It's obviously a lot harder because college football contains way too many teams. So I think at some point you gotta have to say, all right, these are my group of teams that in college football are competing. Maybe even like a reclassify of what Division I and Division II is, set apart some of those teams so you can truly, because I mean, you're never going to get a true actual playoff picture like you would really intend to have with just how diverse and spread out college football is. I mean, it's not just you got 32 teams and you're going to split them in half, and this half's in this conference, this half's in the other. There's a lot of moving parts that I think you could potentially just go like north, south, east, west, have it broken up that way or something like that. But I mean, while you still got Power 4, Group of 5, Pac-12 somewhere around in there, I mean, you've got too many outside parts that mess up what the playoff picture should look like.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think too, if you want to keep it how it is, you just got to re-look at using I think, like you said, get rid of the bye and just figuring out a smarter way to seed these teams. It shouldn't be just based off of – it should be based off of, yes, record and what they've done over the year, but also just overall talent composition of the team. Create good matchups in the playoff. You don't want to continue to give some of these teams just cupcake walks into the championship game.
Now, I will say this. One of the things I was pleasantly surprised by with the college football playoff, the Tennessee-Ohio State game was standing, is that it seemed like I thought 5 years ago that this would be an abject failure because either Alabama or Georgia would dominate. Mm-hmm. But it does seem like some of the gap has been closed. Obviously, Notre Dame beat Georgia. I guess that's transfer portal, NIL, but it does seem like there are 8 to 12 teams that could win a championship. And I wouldn't have thought that was the case 5 years ago. I would have thought Alabama's just going to roll through it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the talent level all across college football has gotten better. And I mean, I think this playoff, if anything, has highlighted that the SEC's maybe fallen off just a touch. I mean, I can't remember the last time Notre Dame's been able to have a program building win over an SEC powerhouse like they did.
I think it was 1990, and I was there. That was in Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, see, like I'm used to the Notre Dames that they don't play anybody, they get to the championship and you just get absolutely wrecked by an Alabama team. That's the Notre Dame that I'm used to. So still, I mean, it's just
Ollie's still the best line. When Brian Kelly was asked, "What do you guys need to do in the second half to come back?" Alabama not show up. All right. I'm sorry to interrupt, but that was one of the most stunning halftime interviews I've ever seen.
But no, I mean, I think it has shown that the SEC is not the big powerhouse that they are. And I don't know. I mean, I think you can look back at the season and a lot of people justify it like, they were beating up on each other. More SEC teams should have been in the playoffs. I mean, if that's the case, that's the case. But it shows that the Big Ten and teams like Notre Dame are right there with us now. I think the ACC's got a couple teams that could compete with us but aren't fully there yet. But, I mean, you're seeing more parity within the college football, and you've seen it all over the place this year. And I think a lot of it's got to be credited to the transfer portal. I mean, I think it's so big what the transfer portal can do now. I mean, it's created a free agency with no contract ties in college football. I was when someone was talking about it when Belichick got hired, they were like, you can't treat them like NFL players because, I mean, he'll run them off and they don't have any contract ties to the program. They can leave whenever. And I think that's played a huge part in it. Guy goes somewhere, doesn't like it. Well, I can just leave and I'll be immediately eligible the next season. And then I think, too, a part of that is just the disbursement of money going around. Every program's got the ability to pull in big players now with large amounts of money for the most part, especially in your Power 4 conferences. So I think that's helped even the playing field out because not everybody's just as recruits coming out and saying, all right, I want to go to Alabama because Alabama wins championships. There's more of, I want to go here because they're going to pay me this. I'm going to get to do this. I'm going to get this, and this endorsement. And they promised me this playing time and all this stuff. So, I mean, there's a lot more factors that go into their recruitment process that helps, I guess, disperse the talent a little bit, but also just kind of tears away at what I always believed in was the whole purpose and point of college football. It's program tradition, program pride. You build in, you buy into a program at a college, and you give that your best to that community that thrives on those programs.
Ollie's appearance brought to you in part by Rick Terry Jewelry Design. They want to be your jeweler on Kingston Pike. Affordable game day jewelry like those fire opals, a Tennessee tradition, rickterryjewelry.com. And they take what you want, what you're looking for, and they make it. That's a jewelry designer. They are fantastic. Ollie, you're a smart guy. Would you support a union?
No.
Okay. Why?
No. I just, everything I've heard about them, it's not, I understand the points of them, but there's a lot of weird things that go on with the union that I don't understand, I guess, 100%.
Yeah.
But like,
neither did Jimmy Hoffa.
Yeah.
Okay. No union. I was just curious because I'm on the same page.
But you can't have a salary cap without a union, guys. That's the thing. If you want a salary cap and revenue sharing, that's not going to that's an antitrust violation if you don't allow. The only way you can have a salary cap is if the players can unionize.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a free for all.
No, I think there should be like a college football players association. We had talked about trying to do that during the COVID season. Nothing ever really materialized from it. But I think there should be something out there that's players looking out for players. There's SAC, but they don't have as much power as you'd want them to. Now, granted, I don't know
what is SAG?
Student athlete. I don't know. It was a part of it. Now I can't remember what it stands for. Student athlete something. But it was pretty much just to help student athletes give information and stuff about what's going on and how they can improve the college athletics and stuff like that as a whole. But I mean, I think with the NFL and their players association, they do a lot in making things better for those players. And now it's obviously different college football because they're not professionals, but they're pretty much getting paid close to professional wages, if not more for some people. So I think having something out there that's just guys fighting for their own guys helps, especially dealing with the NCAA is not always nice. And so I think having a powerful voice to help with that would. But granted, I'm not a union guy. I don't know if the union idea would work a ton.
So, well, a players association would be a union effectively. So, but I guess what about this? Here's beyond players associations and all of that. I'm sorry. I don't know what you think. I think they should just take the SEC, Big Ten combined, and then take a few other elite teams and just abolish the conferences. I know the SEC.
No, I said that 6 months ago, Caleb.
No, because you wanted the SEC and the Big Ten to be like AL, NL. I'm like, no SEC, no Big Ten. Just take the top 50 teams. And also, what about this? Then do your playoff, a relegation model. So in a Premier League soccer, the 4 bottom teams at the end of the year have to play it out to avoid being demoted to
the bottom league.
The bottom league, and the top 4 get promoted up.
Actually, Peyton Manning called in to give his thoughts on that.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
It's the worst idea, Caleb. You can't relegate teams.
Yes, you can. I love this. Have 2 tiers of Division I, like Group of 5, Power 5, and there are no conferences. They're just all in one or the other. And the bottom tier teams get relegated and the top tiers get promoted. And call it a day. I think you should do it.
I've been talking about it for a couple of years. I think at some point they just need to separate college football from the NCAA as a whole, and just like the XFL, like the UFLs try to be that minor league system for the NFL. All you got to do is just create it, and then you take that football program tie away from the university, and you just say, all right, I want to bring this kid in. I'm either going to pay you a salary or I'm going to give you a scholarship to go to school. You decide if you want to go to school, or if you think you're talented enough to get to the league, I'm just going to pay you a salary. You focus on playing football and we'll get you to the league. I think that's probably the smart, because there's guys that go to college, especially for basketball. They're not going for a degree. They're going to play 1 year and be done. Or for football, they're going to play, make some big noise, play for 2 or 3 years, then get out and go to the league. That's some of the mindsets for some people. They don't care about the school. So, take that away, separate it from the NCAA, make it its own thing. Now you got a true minor league system for the NFL, which hasn't been ever really around. Obviously, college football has been the stepping stone for players, but now you just create a whole new league. You probably generate some more revenue. You have less regulations and rules from the NCAA, and like you said, it's a league of their own.
Ollie Lane raises the average IQ of the show every Friday. We appreciate him being on. Have a fantastic weekend. Let's grab lunch sometime, buddy.
Sounds good. I appreciate you guys.
Ollie Lane's the best. Happy New Year. Blessings to you, sir. We appreciate you.